Did it just crash? That's weird. So I am going into the other computer in the other room. I've already we already have the room calibrated, and let's see, this will be fine. And so we're already sending data streaming, and so this is the Windows computer in the other room. And basically, we're going to get to, this is what I did with Dylan the other day. We're going to get to the point of making sure the record player's still going. It's spinning. That's really funny. Anyway. Yay, Windows. So I'll close this project. And so this is, we're already sending out tracking data for Tracker. And I'll just do a new one so we can do it from scratch. Can't hurt to keep on learning this stuff. Because you guys will probably, even if you're not going to do this for your final project, it's still fun. And I think, you know, Dano's about to invest in doing the entire J room so that we can walk around in rooms of that size. So we talked about it yesterday. We're going to do a blank project, and we're going to do it with starter content. Well, we don't even need it, but I'll do it for now. And this is going to be on that computer. And so we're going to do it on the data drive. And everyone, if you can't find a project, I moved everything to the data drive. There's an additional drive, and it's just a way for us to save space in the main computer. Okay. Test. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is start the IKinema plugin. All right, so yeah, I'm recording this. Yeah, this is, I've done this with a few people, but I want to make sure everything's documented for a lot of people aren't here also today. So yeah, we're going. All right, so we're going to turn on the plugin for IKinema, and then it's going to restart our whole scene. And then I'm going to bring on in that prop template, little single bone from the desktop that still lives there. There it is. And it is being imported as a skeletal mesh. There we go. Don't worry about that. Okay, so we now have a skeletal mesh, and it has, oh, I'm on a Windows computer. Okay, great. So, and we've all seen that before. So with having a skeletal mesh, we're going to be able to make an animation blueprint for it that's going to bring in the streaming data. So we're going to go animation blueprint, and then we're going to include that prop. And this is the same way you do tracking for a person as well. And I'll give it a name, ABP camera. There's our homeboy. And then we're going to bring in that streaming node. Mocap stream. And to make sure everything is one place, I'm going to take off all these little pins and put it all in the details panel so we can look at it all at once and have all the checklists going. So first of all, we're going to choose the fact that it's a OptiTrack, and the IP is 192.168.1.2. The port number is 1511, and I've called it, creatively enough, camera. And we're going to do all this other streaming, reconnect, make the scale 100 to match units over motive, and then we're going to make sure that it's a rigid body. All right? So once I attach this, we just see this start spinning around. There we go. So how do we get that to be our camera? We can't just parent a camera to there because it won't use that camera. And if we put the camera in like a matinee or something like that, we can't move it around. It's being locked. So we need to actually make it a pawn that can be controlled by the data stream. So we are going to save this in case it crashes, and we're going to close, and we're going to make a blueprint. So this is a new blueprint. This is called a pawn blueprint. It's something that a pawn is. Each blueprint has its own like kind of parameters. An actor blueprint has everything available for you. But when you see that when we open up a blueprint, there are a lot of blueprints, and a lot of them have special functions. Like I told the team with the earthquake that there's actually a camera shake blueprint that is just about triggering camera shake, and you don't have to worry about coding all the things that are implicit with that. And it just has oscillation of which axes for position and rotation. There's a lot of different blueprints. These are the ones at the top are the ones that are used the most. The pawn just knows that it's not going to be freely moving. It's going to be moved by something else. So, and we can set it up as a default camera. So we're going to make a camera pawn. And I'm going to bring in that skeletal mesh. Windows. Windows on a Mac. So over here in my content browser, when I select the skeletal mesh, then I can add it in. Context. Boom. There it is. And then we need to bring in a camera. So for my components, there's a long list of things I can bring in, and camera is going to be one of them. And I can just type, because the list is so long, we have a camera. All right. So I don't need this scene root. I'm going to make the prop template be the root of that, and this camera is already parented underneath. I need to do two things. I need to connect the skeletal mesh with my animation blueprint so I get the streaming, and then I need to make sure the camera is connected to the socket that I want it to be. So first we'll do the socket. We'll go for the root, which is the center of that skeletal mesh, and we'll kind of position it. And then, you saw how it rotated there? Yeah. That's something I'm going to tell you in a second. Okay. I have to always, I never saw that happen. Actually, every time I use the Oculus, and you put it on, you're always sideways. And you have to take it off and then put it back on after a 90-degree rotation, which is something I found out. And I think it might have to do with something, the orientation of the bone, how I made it in Maya. So just be wary that when you put on the Oculus, you're moving around. It's easier not to rotate these things around in here. Just take the actual thing off and rotate 90 degrees and put it back on your thing. We have adhesive prop templates, and then I have an Oculus here, the adhesive tape that it just sticks on. But we also have plenty of other tape if you need to put it on different Oculus and all stuff. We have lots of Velcro tape. Yep. It'll tilt correctly when you do it that way. Well, they're not offsetting it. They're just driving the camera. I'm talking about like you're actually moving the prop. You're offsetting the prop physically. Yeah, seriously, it's like the easiest way to do it. When I tried to figure it out within Unreal in the blueprint and like rotate it around, it would be weird because you would rotate this way and it wouldn't be intuitive. And I was like, oh, I'll just take the prop, un-Velcro it, rotate it, put it back on, everything's fixed. So that scale I did of 100, it might not be perfect. So take it for a spin, we were messing around with it, and see like maybe somebody's gait is longer. Make it so it's kind of like the size of the room matches the size of the experience, but that scale that's in the animation blueprint might need to massage it one way or the other. And you might just want to play with it. Like if you have a huge landscape and you want to walk across like a giant, then make it a large scale. That's some of the other control you have. The other thing I have to do here is go up to this prop template and tie in that animation blueprint. And as soon as I do that, you're going to see this start spinning around, hopefully. Yay! So now we have, we've seen this many times. This is basically a prop being moved by a prop tracker. But what we still have to do though is make it the default camera for our scene. And so this also brings us to another blueprint, which is why I'm glad we're doing documentation of this. This new blueprint is called a game mode. The game mode is the way we choose what the camera is, what the controllers are, how we're scoring. It like holds all this different information that you pull variables from. That you can switch out game modes dynamically. Would that be how you switch between a first-person and a third-person game if something happened? So this game mode is down here, and you'll see that we'll say this is game mode off. All right. I gotta quit doing Windows. There we go. And all this has is right here. It's these classes, and we're gonna make that camera pawn be the default pawn. This is what is our camera. Now, if I had made the camera an actor blueprint, it wouldn't be able to be selected. You can only do specific kinds of blueprints in these things. You can only do a heads-up display with a heads-up display blueprint inside a heads-up display class. And if like the Snake Group does the scoring, this is where you'd actually talk about how you're doing your scoring and how you're doing a heads-up display. And this is where you choose that as the default setting. We're going to choose that camera pawn, save, and then that's all you have to do for this one. And then next to your details, sometimes it won't be there. To get your world settings, it's right here underneath the window. You bring that up, and you have world settings, and it has interesting things like we have a kill Z. If you fall down far enough, this is when it kills the game. You can set these kind of stuff up. It has some more like bigger level settings. We're going to choose our game mode, which was game mode awk. And we'll save again. And now when we hit play, even though we have a player start in there, ideally it should be the yeah, so it's sideways. So I would have to go in there and rotate it 90 degrees. Oh, don't worry about it because it's sitting up on the thing. You get the idea. Yeah, it's gonna make us sick, but you know. And so if you want to do Oculus, you have to have the Oculus plugged in beforehand, before you have your editor open. So if you didn't have the Oculus in, you'd have to then close this, put the Oculus in, and then when you reopen your scene, it automatically loads all the drivers in because it sees that Oculus is there. Super easy. And underneath play, because I have the Oculus plugged in down there, VR Preview is now allowed. And this is also the same for the Vive. Any tethered stuff, this is how you do it. For the Gear VR, it's a much harder process of making a mobile app. And Matt from our class has figured that out. You need to do maybe some of you other guys have figured it out too, but he's a resource for that. And then the warning lasts for about 5 seconds. You have to press a key for it to go away. So just if you have to plan this into your experience, right? Maybe it's always playing, therefore you don't have to go through that text. Or if you have something that's timed to music or whatever, make sure that your whole game doesn't start until after the warning goes away. That's something that I didn't account for, and it was too hard for me to change on a project I was working on over the weekend. And so it was just like, oh, well, screw it. And right here you see that the prop template is visible. We could just hide that in game. It's a little bit hard to get out sometimes. I just have to kind of crash it. No, because I'll tab on my own. Sure. Game mode is, well, that's weird. Game mode is a way of selecting the different rules about how you're playing your game. And it doesn't have many options. It's just talking about what your default classes are. It's like, what is, all these things are like, what are the game states, what are the spectator classes. These are different, it's kind of a high level concept that we're not really, it's all the configurations. It's how your game ships. It's like, is it, it's, you know, so for instance, we're doing what's the default pawn. It's that camera. If we wanted a default pawn to be something else, we have to make a pawn blueprint just to communicate that to this game mode. I'm doing a circular definition of this thing. I don't really know. I've barely used it. You're gonna, when you want to use the Oculus for your orientation, but use position for tracking or use position on rails, you're going to come in here and you're also going to create a player controller so that you can separate the two out. And I can send that tutorial out if you want to have that experience. It's a lot of fun. It's really stable and really nice to just do orientation. So anyway, so this is working. I mean, just to have everything in one place, I'll go back into this camera pawn, and I will select my prop template, and I will tell it to be hidden in game. So when I hit play, and yeah, now it's visible, and we can do. And then if we mess around with the scale really quickly, we go in this animation blueprint. We can, or you can offset it in motive as well. Make it 1,000. 10,000 might be much. Save. And now it's a little bit further off. It's like higher up. You're spinning a little wider. All right. So that kind of concludes that whole section. The Oculus is super easy to use. But hard to get out of. Yes. So that's just where you just have to kind of finesse that with that scale, and that just takes testing. And I think it kind of, we need to find like the average. Like, let's make it for a person who's 5'6" and get that going, or 5'8" or whatever. And then once it works like that, then it could work for pretty much everyone. But it's in that scale, or it's in the offset, which you can either offset it through the blueprint, so it's how it's parented. If I go into the camera pawn, we go into this viewport, we can obviously move around the camera, but that might be a little bit disorienting because then you're like pivoting somebody's eyeballs off of a tracker. So I would maybe mess around with it in motive too. That offset that's in the properties of your rigid body, you can rotate it and scale it and stuff like that. But yeah, literally, if I could ever grab onto this, or if I want to make it taller, let's see. Now it looks really confusing and painful. All right. So now I'm done with the computer over there. I am going to now pause.